Hello, my name is Mark O'Keefe. I'm the editorial page editor for the Herald-Standard. I want to welcome you to this editorial board meeting with candidates for the 49th District of the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives, which includes parts of Fayette and Washington County. The candidates are Democrat incumbent Daley, who has represented the district since 1983, and his Republican challenger, Bud Cook. I want to thank both Mr. Daley and Mr. Cook for coming in and agreeing to meet with us and sharing your views with Herald-Standard readers and also viewers of our website. Members of the Herald-Standard editorial board present today include myself, Mike Palm, executive editor, Patty Yager, county government reporter, and Bill Long, community board member. The candidates will have 3 minutes to give opening and closing statements and 3 minutes to answer questions. Members of the board may ask follow-up questions, and the candidates will have 3 minutes to answer those questions as well. Candidates should not erupt when questions are being answered. Candidates should use their own time if they want to rebut any comments. So we'll start out with, go with alphabetical order. So we'll start with the opening comments. Within my command of the alphabet, I believe that starts with you, Mr.
Mark and the board, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come and visit. 2 years ago, I have 6 nieces and nephews, and I asked them the question, are there any politicians that they respected? And they said that there were none. And that got me taking a look at our area and our situation and where we were at, and just politics overall. And I came to the conclusion that at some point in life you need to take action as opposed to what you want to do. I, in effect, retired from politics in 1990, and when I moved back to the Valley to be with family. I look at our Valley and our area, and I know we have problems, but I also see a tremendous amount of potential. A very wise person told me to make myself aware of the problems, and as I was new to the community, kind of take a look at it in that vein. So I did, and I went out and I visited the majority of our 65 precincts in the district, and I kept seeing potential after potential after potential in the Valley. The one thing that I did not see is the leadership in the Valley to promote. And there are basically 2 major problems in our area. The first problem is jobs. I mean, it's just terrible the way that our communities are going downhill when you go through the main streets in some of our communities. And it's not for lack of local attempts. People are trying out there. I've been to borough meetings, city council meetings, chamber meetings, and people locally are really trying. The second major problem in our area is our major export is our young people. And that's a concern across the board for the future of the community, as well as for the senior citizens in our area. It's really distressing when you go and you visit somebody who's 85, 90 years old living in the Valley, whose family had to leave in order to pursue employment. So the main focus of my campaign is to put together a plan to promote the Valley, which we've already begun to do, and continue that forward in order to promote the Valley going forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Daley.
Thank you, Mark. I am Pete Daley. I am the Democrat candidate and the incumbent in this matter for the 49th Legislative District, which has changed a little bit. I have Franklin and Jefferson, as well as Newell, which is something I had several years ago with Newell. In fact, I have lost Redstone Township and part of Manalapan. Used to have all of Manalapan and South Union 1. So over the last 2 reapportionments, it's changed. Also in Washington County, my nemesis at the time, Bill DeWeeks, decided to stretch my district from Fayette County to, in essence, to West Alexander. In the last reapportionment, we corrected that and brought us back more central to Washington County. I-79 is what we call the Mason-Dixon line now. I'm on everything on this side, the eastern side of I-79, Washington County. The Mon Valley, running from Monongahela, New Eagle, Carroll Township, down to West Brownsville, and cutting across the river, Washington Township, and the other communities I stated. I am the chairman of the House Consumer Affairs Committee, the Democratic chair. I am 4th in seniority in the House of Representatives, and my fingerprints have been on every major piece of legislation probably in the last 30 years affecting southwestern Pennsylvania. Although my opponent has talked about a plan to fix the problem, while he was away, we've been trying to fix the problem. When he was in West Virginia, we were fixing the problem. We were addressing the issue of the loss of jobs by pushing legislation like the Monfade Expressway, which took a lot of effort on all our parts, all the delegation working together, Senate and the House, getting that road completed. And you know, we fought a major battle to build one of the major highway projects in America. That's one of the ways you get jobs. The other ways is you do other things like industrial parks, like the Fairchance Industrial Park, which we helped to fund through FAPED, the Malden Industrial Park, the California Technology Park, the park that's in Fallowfield Township, the Nora Industrial Park. These are things you work at all the time. In the last 32 years, I'm proud to say I brought over about $138 million in projects. And I helped create legislation addressing everything from plant closing to right now we're dealing with early shut-off notices on people with utilities. I have worked diligently. I've had town meetings. I've been open and accessible. And I've funded a lot of education projects and led most of the funding for California University through Everly Technologies building, as well as some of the other things we're doing in terms of our partnership with other communities. And I'm looking forward to discussing these issues with my opponent to find out what his plan and goals are.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'll take the first question. The State House of Representatives is on schedule to be in session for only 64 days this year. Are you okay with the House's schedule of session days? Any concerns that the number of session days might be one of the reasons why the House has not passed action on a host of issues ranging from pension reform and property taxes to legalizing medical marijuana changes in our alcohol distribution system? If the House was in session more days, do you think more might be accomplished? Mr. David?
Thank you, Mark. Absolutely. And although my opponent's party holds the governor's seat, the House and the Senate, they decide how much we're in session. Being in the minority party, we can't control that. We have several pieces of legislation I know that we have sent over to the Senate. We're waiting for action. As a matter of fact, we're in session next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Then we're in session the following week on a Tuesday and Wednesday. That's ludicrous. They're talking about one other day in November to wrap everything up. We can be in session to the end of November. There's no reason why we shouldn't be in session trying to address the issues of Pennsylvania, like the pension concern, like the Marcellus Shell extraction tax, like the education concerns. As a matter of fact, this governor, in his budget that we passed, not with my vote, but with the majority party's vote, his party's votes, they passed a budget that we've already funded $1 billion extra for the Treasury Department because it's short. We passed the budget, the legislature passed a budget that is $3 billion short. We aren't going to make the fiscal year. We're 4 months of the fiscal year, we've already borrowed $1 billion. We need to stay, get it done, get it fixed, and not go home.
But isn't it true that even when the Democrats have been empowered, that they haven't really been all that many more session days?
No, and I've articulated my concerns with my leadership, with the governor. I'll never hold back. I kind of tell it like it is. We need to, as a legislature, I proposed, Mark, and I think the board knows this, and we talked about this at the last editorial board meeting. I was the first legislator to propose a unicameral legislature back in the 90s. We have too much duplicity with the House and the Senate. Let's be like Nebraska. Why should we pass bills twice? Send it to the Senate, pass it over there, send it back, correct it? I'll cut me a break. Why do we need all this duplicity? Why do we need all this administrative overload? The legislature can legislate. That's what we did in Pennsylvania for 150 years before we created this creation from France, creating a legislative chamber. I find it ludicrous, and I think we really fell in our leadership capacity as a legislature, as a governor, and the Senate. I think we fell dastardly.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Cook?
In my opinion, regardless of party, professional politicians are professional politicians. In business, you have a problem, you identify the problem, you take a look at it, and you address the problem. We need less promises across the board and more performance. Frankly, I think time and session is not the issue. It's attacking the problem and getting it done. One of the things you learn when you go door to door are how upset the voters are out there with all levels of government and being told and being promised things that never occur. At some point, you need to make change and change the system in order to resolve the problems. That's part of our platform.
How would you go about making such changes?
Number one, I'd start with taking a look at reducing the size of government across the board. Size of the representatives, size of the Senate. There's many other states that are able to do it on less time, less people, and get it done. I think we've built just government has gotten too big and unwieldy to get it done. There's a tremendous amount of taxes coming out of the valley, going to Harrisburg and going to the ends of the state. I mean, we need to address the problems that we have. Go back to jobs.
Okay, thank you very much. Bill, you want to ask the second question?
Just no bit, Mr. Parker.
Yes, sir.
Fayette County's unemployment rate remains one of the highest in the state, as it did for a number of years. Our rate for July was 6.8% compared to the state average of 5.7%. What can be done to improve the economy and lower the unemployment rates in Fayette County?
Excellent question. Let's take that not only in Fayette County, but Washington County as well. Professionally, what I do for a living is e-marketing. And what I do is I take successful businesses and other businesses and teach them how to use the technology. When I was on council in Buchanan, we did a Main Street program. That was between 1980 and 90. And during that time, when I go down now and I go through Interstate 79 through West Virginia, I see brown billboards that say attractions at each exit. What we need to do first and foremost is identify our assets, our attractions and activities in our local area. And then we need to promote that as a destination point. We want to roll out the welcome mat and say, hey, Mr. Businessman, we want you to come to Fayette, we want you to come to Washington, we want you to come to the Mon Valley area. And the way you do that is most of the people know when they look for something, they do a Google search. If I want to shop down Main Street, Monongahela, if I want to shop down Main Street, Bell Vernon, I want to be able to go on the internet and I want to do a Google search and I want to see a page that has every vendor listed down there with a Facebook page or a website and be able to access and shop locally first. Once you do that and you get the reputation that you're business friendly, that's a perceived reputation, you start to attract other people. Let's not forget how many businesses got started in garages. So rather than trying to hit the home runs as we've done in the past, I would much rather see us do a lot of singles, a lot of smaller businesses where here doesn't mean here anymore. This area is still an excellent place to raise a family. It's an excellent place to get an education. You can't find a job. You have to leave the area in order to find that job. We've got to stop the export of our best and brightest out of the area.
Thank you, Mr. Daley.
Yeah, I don't know how he's going to stop the export because it's going on here, it's going on in Ohio, it's going on in West Virginia. If he can tell us how to stop that export, let's do it. Put the plan out there, change the national economy. I know what he did in Buchanan, the Main Street project from the 1980s and 1990s, fixing up downtown Uniontown to not improve the economy of downtown Uniontown. We did a Main Street project here. I know what they did down there. Beautification of downtowns do not create jobs. It makes pretty downtowns. It's something we did in the United States. We did it in the 80s. We did it in the 90s. Guess what? It didn't create any jobs. We have a lot of vacant buildings here in Uniontown. There's a lot of vacant buildings in Buchanan. I went to Buchanan and saw Buchanan and what they've done down there. It didn't create any jobs. And without the university there, they wouldn't have any jobs at all because West Virginia's unemployment rate's higher than ours because we've lost 15,000 coal miner jobs in the last year and a half. And most of that's in West Virginia. In Pennsylvania, let's talk about substantive things. Washington County, although he's lumping them into Fayette County, we're two different worlds. We in Fayette County, I was born and raised in Brownsville. I'm from Fayette County. My family's from Fayette County. I was raised part of my life in California. The Mon Valley is struggling like the Still Valley, like Ambridge, like Aliquippa. Every valley, Ohio Valley, Still Valley, Allegheny Valley, all struggling. We're going through this cataclysmic change. But all of a sudden, you make the downtowns pretty. Guess what? I did a beautification project in Clarendon. Go through Clarendon right now. See how bad it is with Clarendon still. In Washington County, we've seen, Washington County is the second fastest growing county in the United States. Second fastest growing county in the United States. But guess what? When you get down in the valley where the steel mills were, the coal mines were, we haven't shared in that great South Point development, the Meadows development. We need to do more things to attract them, and we're doing that with Allenport plant. We did it with creating an enterprise zone in the Mon Valley. It's a tax-free enterprise zone. We've done it in Fayette County. I authored that legislation. I chaired the Consumer Affairs Committee and the Commerce Committee that created these tax-free zones. My legislation is going to help bring that fracking plant, that cracker plant, into Aliquippa. Does that affect us? Heck yeah. Everything that happens in the region affects all of us. And that's the goal that you need to have. You've got to have real ideas and real products and real fundamental developmental, economic developmental issues.
Thank you.
Okay. Mike, do you want to ask the third question?
Sure. Pete, right?
Yes.
Changes have been proposed to the state's open records and open meetings laws, which would mandate agendas for all municipal and school board meetings and mandate that executive meetings be tape recorded to make sure no abuses are occurring. Are you in favor or against such proposals?
I'm absolutely in favor of it. I was proponent of the Open Records Act. I worked with this paper when we were trying to get certain people that were in the legislative district in south of us that are no longer in the legislature to give his records, bring them forth publicly. I think executive committee meetings should never be allowed. There should be nothing discussed at an executive committee meeting that should not be aired publicly. For what's the purpose of the executive committee? I can understand if it's a personnel issue that is highly sensitive. I can understand going in executive session to protect certain facts and certain issues and certain people's rights. Other than personnel matters, there should be no more executive committee meetings. With school boards, with boroughs, with cities, with townships, that should end. We can't do that in the legislature. They shouldn't be able to do it anywhere else in Pennsylvania.
What about the agendas also?
I don't think there should be an agenda meeting. I think you should have an agenda the day you...
Well, what they're saying is that the agenda should be made public.
I think they should be.
So
Absolutely.
people know what's going to go,
Wait,
so whether they can determine whether they should go to the meeting or not.
I think they should be published in the paper. I think they should be on the internet. I think people should know what the meetings are about. We elect elected officials, all of us. If it's school board, council, township, whatever it may be, we elect those people to represent our best interests. That information should be public so people can have a chance to participate in the discussion. Because guess what? It's the taxpayers' money.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk.
I'm really glad to hear my opponent say that. The world that I live in, of course, is on the internet and, accessibility and that part of it. Again, leadership, I think you should start with yourself. And I think things should be posted on the internet. Per diem should be posted on the internet. I mean, it's the people's money. And I'm sure my opponent will agree with me. If I'm working in business and I have a boss and I submit my expenses, it's either approved or denied. So because it's the people's money, yeah, I think we open these up, we open the agenda, and we put sunshine on it. That's always a good thing.
Okay, thank you very much. Patty, you want to ask the question?
Mr. Cook, legislation has been proposed that would require lawmakers to turn in receipts to collect reimbursements for work-related expenses instead of just claiming unvouchered per diem payments up to $149. Do you favor such legislation, and do you think per diem should be eliminated? You're smiling.
It's always good to anticipate, isn't it? Now, I think in business, again, there are legitimate costs in travel and things like that, but I've also been in situations where that's been taken advantage of. If anywhere there's a place where the sunshine needs to shine on things, it's certainly in the expenses of the people's money. Absolutely, 100% should be online and viewable.
Do you think that per diems themselves should be eliminated?
No, I think there's reasonable per diems when you travel back and forth. I mean, there are some legitimate expenses, you know, I think that's part of it, within reason.
Okay, thank you very much.
To respond to your question, let me just follow up with responding to my opponent's assertion. Per diems are available. All our expenses are available. The comptroller has those. Our chief clerk has those. There's nothing that's hidden. They're submitted for the days that any legislator is in session. And if Mr. Cook should win this election and become a legislator, he'll have to submit his per diems like the rest of us, his days he's in session, his mileage receipts. I think there's a new movement, however, about doing more accountability. I totally support that. If we need to give our food expenses, we provide a copy of our lease to the chief clerk so that there's information that we do stay and where we're staying and how much that is. And, you know, the cost of traveling, the cost of staying, the cost of food. I rarely ever go out to dinner with any lobbyists. I've had a policy forever not to do that. My philosophy is that I can talk to these people in my office, I can talk to these people anytime, but I don't want someone buying me dinner, buying me lunch, buying me breakfast, because that can have an impact in some obtuse way on my staff, and it can be construed that they may have some sort of instrumentality over my decisions. So I usually buy my own dinners, and a lot of times it's diners, and I can name them all in Harrisburg, not at the fancy restaurant. But I can provide those receipts. It's just simply not a problem.
Do you think that per diem, the system the way it is now, is fine, or do you think that per diem should be done away with? Are you okay with the per diems?
Well, there's two schools of thought. If people are abusing per diems, if they say they're in Harrisburg and they're not in Harrisburg and they're collecting per diem, I think that's a fraud, and I think they should be prosecuted. And I think if people are in Harrisburg and they do take a per diem, I know people stay at a hotel and it's like $70, $80 a day or $90 a day to stay there, plus the cost of the meals. I think the per diem system, that's your option. You can decide which way you want to go. You can just provide for actual expenses the way the system is set up now, or you can ask for the per diem. So I have no problem either way. If we do provide the actual expenses, I have no problem with that. And if we keep it the way it is and you take your actual per diem for the day, because I know the cost in Philadelphia is higher, the cost in Pittsburgh's higher, but when it's out here in the Pittsburgh region, most legislators in this area will not take a per diem because we'll go and stay and come back. Even if we stay, they won't take a per diem. I think that's inappropriate.
And you do take per diems?
I do.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify on one thing. My opponent says they're available. Are they available online and accessible?
I cannot tell you that. I've never went online and see if there's, have you?
Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, everything's online and accessible now. I have no problem with that, but I think you can take a visit to the comptroller, call up, or do a right-to-know request, which the newspapers do every day. You don't have to go online. You write a letter and you tell them you want to know, and they'll provide that information to you.
And I was just kind of curious of where we ended up ranking-wise per diem compared to our other representatives.
I have no idea. So what's that have to do with my ability to work? So you base it upon per diems as opposed to what you bring back to the district? So if a guy doesn't have any per diems, he makes no money. He doesn't do anything for the district.
You were the one that said you did diners and small things. Per diems were pretty high, as I recall, but I wasn't sure. So I thought I'd ask.
Well,
Okay, we have a number of other topics that we need to get into. Okay. John, you want to ask question number 5?
Okay, I believe this question is for Representative Daley. The Democratic candidate for governor, Tom Wolf, has harshly accused Governor Corbett of cutting state funding for education. It's a charge the governor denies vehemently. Do you agree or disagree with Wolf, and do you think the state should be spending more or less for education?
Well, first of all, the governor, himself says that he has funded education at all-time record highs. And he blames the last governor, Rendell, for taking the American reinvestment monies that we had $1 billion, the one-shot deal that was going to education, and using that to prop up the education system in Pennsylvania. Well, as you know, Pennsylvania is one of the largest states in the nation. We have 501 school districts. We have many charter schools. And our education budget is $11.1 billion with a B. West Virginia's budget is probably a total of $4 billion for the whole state. We have multiple different parts of the Pennsylvania that has different needs. The governor has underfunded education for the last 3 years to the tune of about $1 billion per year total. And we anticipate that there's going to be a major shortfall next year's budget of $3.1 billion in the budget, which includes education. What we saw by the American reinvestment money putting into education, there was an abject need. And what has happened is the governor has pulled back from that. He has forced local school districts to use their savings funds that they've set aside to fund education. And they're forcing local tax increases by, all in all, saying that we're not for tax increases in Pennsylvania, but forcing it to the lower level. We've seen it all over Pennsylvania. Some school districts now are cutting athletic programs, they're cutting bands, they're cutting art, they're cutting extracurricular activities. Kids have to pay for uniforms for band. That simply doesn't make good sense. Education is what we're about in Pennsylvania, and our Constitution under Article 2 says that we provide for education. We haven't done that. Our funding for education is somewhere around 30% when it really should be 50% by Constitution. This governor has failed miserably with education, miserably. And the more we don't fund education, do not fund education, the more that we're going to further fall along the wayside in competition with the rest of the United States and the world.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Cook.
I believe that education should be properly funded. I mean, the system that we have in place right now is a total mess. I'm not going to get into the professional politician back and forth, governor versus opponent on the whole thing. What I would like to see is what is our expense per student? What is our average expense? At what point we keep raising and we keep raising and we keep raising. At some point, you just can't throw money at a problem. So this is a much bigger issue than the funding and that part of it. Additionally, the school districts are facing an unfunded pension liability. And that's the elephant in the room. And that elephant keeps getting pushed back and pushed back. And one of these days, our children and their children's children are going to have to face that unfunded liability. That's the big scary part within the budget. So, you know, we can throw, he did this, he didn't do that, whatever. Here's the problem. Let's establish what the fixes are for the problem, figure out what we need to do, and find it. Let's quit playing politics with the future of our children's education. I resent that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll take the next question. Wolf has also called for a severance tax on the Marcellus Shale. I mean, we're one of the few states in the country without a severance tax for shale. Is this something you would support or oppose if you're elected? And any concerns that the impact fees currently in place might be eliminated in favor of a severance tax? I'll start with Mr. Cook.
Very good. Where I live in West Pike Run Township, we've been blessed over the last 3 to 6 years. I've seen as many as 21 wells go on a pad. I see trucks going back and forth all the time right in front of my house. The impact fee has funded a tremendous amount of money to the local communities, the townships. I've seen roads in the back country that look better than Interstate 70. My biggest concern with that severance or separation tax is the impact on the impact fee. My biggest concern for our area, and our area specifically, is if we lose that impact fee because of placing a severance fee on top of it, our local communities suffer because of that. The money then leaves the valley, our area, Fayette County, goes to Harrisburg, and goes to the big black holes at the end of the state. That money, if ever there was a place where the rubber hits the road, it's in your local townships, it's in your local cities, and they put those monies to good use. That's my concern about the severance fee or extraction fee on the gas.
Well, obviously, my opponent doesn't understand the whole process, because we are the only state that does not have a severance tax. Some states are up to 7%. We believe that a severance tax in Pennsylvania will generate, and you can write this down, $1.1 billion with a B. The impact fee is something that we passed in the legislature. Other states do impact fees and severance taxes. They combine the two. We can do the same thing. But let me explain something about other states compared to Pennsylvania, and maybe Mr. Cook doesn't realize this, but with the Marcellus Shale and the Utica Shale, we have more natural gas, we have more wet gas, we have more oil than Saudi Arabia has, Texas has, and everyone else in the world. Everybody else in the world, in western Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, and eastern Ohio, in the world. Now, you can't tell me, because the impact fee, and I'd like to ask him if he knows how much impact fee was brought into Pennsylvania and how it was distributed to the municipalities. But there's $225 million in impact fees. Some go to the county, some $20-some million went to state agencies that deal with highways, with environment, like DEP, they deal with, of course, that. $123 million comes to counties and municipalities. Counties and municipalities. But who says we can't overlap that? Other states have done it. And we're going to be a different ballgame. We're like the real deal here in Pennsylvania. We're not like Montana, or we're not like Illinois. We're the epicenter of energy. We're going to have the most oil, the most gas, the most wet gas than anywhere else in the world. That's why there's over 10,000 pending applications in western Pennsylvania to start drilling in western Pennsylvania. Who says the one's going to hurt the other? Everywhere we've seen across the nation, it doesn't hurt the other. It overlays and helps the other. And we can generate $1.1 billion, maybe $1.5 billion in severance tax. That's going to go a long way to address the problems he said with education. You know, the fact we have this big hole in the education and the pension problem we have in Pennsylvania, which is a whole separation, we'll talk about that. I'm for it. Let's do it. The gas industry can do it. They've said they're for it. This administration, the Republicans have decided they weren't going to touch the issue. I think that has been a tragedy to every taxpayer in Pennsylvania that could have benefited from that impact fee. Every taxpayer in Pennsylvania.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'd also like to point out that while I was in...
Does this go into his time? Does this go into his time? I mean,
Yes, you have to.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a debate. I mean, I'll rebut everything he says too. I thought we were going to do that.
Right. Next question. Bill, you want to take questions?
Yes, thank you. That'll be for Mr. Daley. Currently, 19 states have legalized medical marijuana for medicinal purposes. It was passed by the Senate and now is before the State House. Is this something you would support or oppose? 3 states have legalized marijuana for recreational purposes. That's something you would support or oppose?
First of all, we just got that bill about 2 weeks ago from the Senate. The Senate cut out glaucoma, they cut out Crohn's disease, there's several things they cut out. They're really kind of limiting the type of medical marijuana use you can have. Do I think that we'll pass this in Pennsylvania? No. Am I for it? Absolutely. I had a father die of cancer. I saw him struggle through that process. I've had my mother die of cancer and struggle through that process. I have friends that are all our age dying of cancer, and I believe that this would be a help to them. I have children, I've seen children that are sick, that their parents want to help these kids. Do I think it's going to be passed for recreational purposes? I'm surprised that we passed slot machines and gambling, and I was part of that whole debate. Central Pennsylvania, what did James Carville say? Pennsylvania is Pittsburgh, the black hole. Philadelphia, the black hole that generates by about 3.5 million people. And Alabama in between. Pennsylvania is very conservative. And the chances of passing this, I think, are non-existent this session. But like I said, we only have like 6 or 7 more days. Its time has arrived in Pennsylvania. I think we need to get with the rest of the world. Recreational, no way. No way. I'm not for that.
Good, thank you. Mr. Cook?
See, that's something we actually agree on. I would be for limited medical marijuana, not recreational marijuana. I think states are jumping too fast into the recreational marijuana.
Good, thank you.
Okay, Joanne, you want to ask questions, right?
Okay, Mr. Cook.
Yes, sir.
Common Cause and others have called for campaign finance reform, which would include limits on the size of campaign contributions and the amount of money candidates can spend on legislative and statewide races. Do you think such limits would be a good thing or a bad thing?
I believe it would be an excellent thing. As much as I believe in free speech and your right to express your opinions, I think we have a major issue in that area. President Eisenhower talked about the military-industrial complex. What we have now is a political-industrial complex. As I had shared with the committee, I actually was in politics in West Virginia through the 90s, retired, came back out a year ago. I'm absolutely astounded of how industrialized politics has become. A person running as an independent in the state of Pennsylvania has a very little chance. The person, it was never meant to be a profession. You get in office, you do the best you can for a term or two, maybe 3, and then you get out of office. Too many people have too much interest requiring too many favors. That's why our campaign has chose to do everything internally, funding from friends, family. We've rejected all other monies.
Thank you.
That's kind of refreshing because the last campaign, Mr. Cook wasn't involved in, but the Republicans spent $450,000 to beat me from groups outside this state. I was absolutely amazed where I saw funding coming from the Cook brothers, or the Koch brothers were putting money into Pennsylvania. They targeted 10 Democrats because of our position about public education and support for public teachers. The Waltons had put money into these local campaigns, and it came back to our race here. $450,000 in a House seat that pays about $80,000, which is outrageous. I'm all for campaign finance reform. I supported David Lipnansky's legislation on several counts where we call for campaign finance reform. Full disclosure, which we finally do. But I cannot believe that these outside super PACs can still step into races in states like Pennsylvania, like the Student First PAC, that would put tons of money in local races involving local issues. But you know, I'm all for campaign finance reform. Historically, I've always supported that.
Thank you.
Okay. Patty, you want to ask question number 9?
Representative Daley, Act 76 would eliminate school property taxes by raising the sales and income taxes. It would pool the money raised by the tax and give each school district across the state the same amount of subsidy. It was passed by the Senate Finance Committee and now is before the Senate Appropriations Committee. Are you for or against Act 76?
I think it'd probably be Senate Bill 76.
Exactly, you're right.
Yeah, Senate Bill 76 does do certain things that we've been trying to do for many years. If you recall back in the 90s, under the Casey administration, we put it on the ballot, because anytime you do this, it's a constitutional budget, it's a constitutional vote, because we have to change the Constitution. And the way it's set up real quickly, we voted one time, and we voted again next session, and it's voted on by the taxpayers in a referendum. I'm all for it. The SB formula should be fair to every school district. The kids in Uniontown, California, Brownsville should have the same equal footing as the kids in Peters Township, Upper St. Clair, Mount Lebanon. The school district could have everything where we're depending on the elderly population footing the bill in counties like Fayette and Washington and Greene counties. It's absolutely imperative. Now, the question is the sales tax issue. I think that we've talked about that. I'm all for increasing the sales tax, eliminating property tax. I've voted for that several times. And as a matter of fact, when I voted for the gaming stuff, we thought the money was going to go to property tax reduction relief, and it hasn't, which doesn't make sense to me why it hasn't. So I'm all for it. I think we need to do something with that. And if we're gonna do the earned income tax, I think it makes sense. People that earn the money should be paying the taxes. The people that don't earn the money, they shouldn't be paying the taxes. And we hear that from seniors all the time.
Thank you. And I would also be in agreement of eliminating the property tax. I think one of the most heartbreaking experiences that I've had in the last couple of months is going and talking to some of our seniors that are just barely getting by, knowing that they can never own their home because that property tax hangs over top of them. So I think there's a much better way to fund the school. I'd like to see that field level across. My opponent's right, it should be a level field. However, I do have a problem about sending the money to Harrisburg. Trust us, we'll get it to the right place. So, you know, there has to be a little bit more insight into that, the vehicle. I'm not so sure that the sales tax is exactly the vehicle, but that may end up being it. Thank you.
Is your problem more with sending the money to Harrisburg, or your problem more with just the sales tax in general?
I think the sales tax in general, we have to take a look at that. It needs to be some type of income tax or whatever, I'm not exactly sure on that. And then the distribution.
Okay, I'll take question number 10. Some say that Pennsylvania's public pension plans for state employees are underfunded by about $40 million. Governor Corbett has proposed putting all new hires in 401k plans with sizable increases in employee contributions. Democrats say the fears are overblown and contend that recent minor changes should be allowed to take place before any major haul is undertaken. What do you think should happen, and is this a major problem or not? We'll start with Mr. Cook.
Absolutely major problem. You can't continue to kick that can down the road. First, let me state, when you go to a new job or you've been hired, the plan is the plan. We shouldn't mess with anything that's in place already. The new hires coming in are the people going down the road where you stop the bleeding and you change the program and you go that direction. That pensions, absolutely, the unfunded liability is, to lack of a better term, the elephant in the room. I mean, it definitely needs to be addressed. It's going to be a problem. It just needs to be addressed.
We passed the Pension Reform Roadmap, Act 120 of 2010. The House, the Senate, we passed it, signed by the governor. It was a roadmap to get the state back on the right beam here. We have been crying to the state for a long time, me personally, about the pension plan. I have introduced since probably 2000 a bill called 30 and Out for people in the SERS and the PSERS. That's the public employee system and the state public teacher system. We passed it before. We did actuary studies on this. And if the legislature would have acted in 2006, when we had this bill right at the precipice of passing, we'd have saved $500 million in the teacher's retirement and $350 million in the state retirement system. But this is how this thing plays out. The state is not funded at the proper level, no doubt about that. Number two is that in 2003, after 2001, when we had the insurance company getting chewed alive because of 9/11, that everybody lost a lot of money because pension systems were invested in a lot of these insurance companies. So we had to go out and do a bond and finance that bond for 10 years to help to bolster up our pension system. And actually, the state wasn't putting any money into it because the rate of return was 15%, 14% per month. If it was 6 or 7, then the state would have to participate. Well, all of a sudden, 2008 happened, and the economy took a nosedive, and it started all over again. So now we have another issue that happened. Even though we were funding it at this 15%, not putting any money in, it collapsed in 2008. The state should have acted on it. I know that people say it's $20 billion. I hear $40 billion. It's something that we in the legislature did address. We think if we continue to fund it the way that the roadmap set it out to do, that it's going to catch up. I don't think 401ks are the answer. I don't want to send anything to Wall Street. Let somebody on Wall Street take my pension, your pension, or anyone else's pension and invest it. I've never seen anything good come out of Wall Street. I don't want someone else doing it with my money. I've seen what happened in 2008. I've seen what happened in 2002. And I'm not a big investor. I don't invest in anything, actually. I don't buy into that routine, and I would not do that. But I think that we can fix this problem. I think we can fix it if we had that Marcellus Shell thing. If we had that extraction tax, I think we can start bolstering this system.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bill, want to take a question for Leslie?
Certainly, Representative Daley. Changes have been proposed to do away with the state control of our alcohol distribution system, including doing away with state stores. What do you think should happen?
The state stores generate about $140 million a year. I think that we need not to get rid of the state stores. I think we need to reform the state stores. I think we need to do some legislation that makes them more accessible, more modern, expands the amount of wine. I don't drink, I don't go buy things at state stores, but I know a lot of people do. And I think that what we need to do, and I've seen legislation coming from the Senate that's more going to streamline the system and develop a system and save the system. I can't see selling all those liquor stores to private business, private entities, and that's what this government wants to do. That's what the Republicans have tried to do. And we're going to lose about 4,000 jobs right off the bat. Plus, we're going to lose about $130 million in revenue a year. I think we can fix it. I think we can expand it. We can improve it.
It had been brought up in other debates we've had, that the system was losing money. Was that inaccurate?
Yeah, it is. It is not losing money. If you check with the Office of Budget and Finance, you'll see that the state store system is making money. It's one of, other than the lottery, this was one of the governor's other deal, was to sell the lottery to
A British
concern, and they were going to sell it for $50 billion. The British concern was fundamentally holding the pension system for Canada. They were going to use our lottery system to pay off the $50 billion pension system in Canada. The lottery works. The liquor system makes money. I think there's ways of reforming it, and I think the lottery system shouldn't be sold at all. I think it works very well. I'm surprised that anything the legislature touches actually does work, and here's an example, it does work.
What about anything with like allowing beer in convenience stores?
Yeah.
You think that might be something possible?
It's happening right now. The Liquor Control Board is doing, and I've seen some stuff with Giant Eagle, with Wegmans, and in certain Sheetses that are larger Sheetses, that they are starting to make them 6-pack shops and selling beer in these convenience stores. The liquor system is starting to change, addressing that particular issue. I mean, seeing wine being sold, like you see in other states, I don't think that's going to happen now, but it probably will happen in the future.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Cook.
Absolutely get out of the liquor store business. I don't believe the state has any business in doing something that I think free enterprise can do better. Again, it's the old adage, send it to us, we'll do it better, we'll take care of it. I do believe there needs to be a very, very, very tight restrictions and controls over it. We don't want to see a liquor store on every store, but you know, again, we're wanting people to come in and visit our area and go, and on Sunday, they can't find anything. You know, and you know, I would just wonder, compared to other states, how many people do not have that system or retain that system in place. Having been involved in the convenience store industry, I know it can be done, it can be controlled, and be done very effectively. We talk about the jobs that would be lost, but what about the jobs that would be created? You know, if we want change within our area, we first need to make changes, and that would be one I would definitely support.
Okay. John, you want to take question number 12?
Okay, there has been talk about reducing the staff, reducing the size of the state legislature and its staffs. Where do you stand on that?
Absolutely reduce it. And I'll tell you why, because today's technology, you can be so much more, you can work at same hard, but work effectively. For example, there is absolutely no reason we could not be having this particular meeting as a conference call GoToMeeting, where all of us would be involved. The technology is out there available, so you don't necessarily would have to go to Harrisburg in order to have meetings in Harrisburg. In my particular world, professionally, here does not mean here anymore. Every one of us has a cell phone. Every one of us is probably monitoring emails. We probably use Skype. So yeah, I think if you want to start and reduce some things, you look inward first, and you lead by example. You don't lead from behind.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Let me just real quick hit the issue about the liquor store. He wants to take it from the state.
Excuse me, I thought we said.
I can still respond
No,
to
you
your
can
question.
respond, it's his turn.
And use my time to respond to you. You want to do the profit motive. When you put profit motive to sell liquor, I think that we're jeopardizing the safety of children. I think we're jeopardizing jobs are going to go from labor jobs that are union jobs down to minimum wage jobs. You may be creating more jobs, but you're going to be paying people a lot less, like Walmart. Now, regarding this, you know my answer. I don't know, John, if you were here sitting, I've introduced legislation on several occasions about reducing the size of the legislature. I was sort of like the vanguard on that issue. I started out with 20 members, the next session I had 15, the next session I had 4, the next session I had me and a couple other people, and all of a sudden we had this big reform movement, and the legislation became the issue. I think we need to do it. I think the duplicity of running a piece of legislation twice through the meat grinder ends up bad meat. This legislation can go to a committee in the General Assembly, is what we had in Pennsylvania before we decided to adopt the Articles of Confederation, then Congress, and creating the Constitution. We had a General Assembly. It was the House of Representatives. It was called the General Assembly. You have one education committee. You have one, the bill comes in, goes to education, goes back on, gets voted, goes to the governor and signs it. That's the way it should be. It doesn't make sense sending it to the Senate, like you said about the Senate Bill 76. That should be a done deal. We didn't have to get it back to the House and deal with that. Because I'll send a bill over there as a Cadillac, it comes back as a Volkswagen. Then we have to go to a conference committee if we disagree with the amendments they put in there. It's a waste of time. It's duplicit. It doesn't make good sense to me. I have a master's of political science. I've studied political philosophy all over the world. Our system as a democracy makes sense. Our representative government makes sense. But us having a parliamentary system like France and England doesn't make sense because we don't need a House of Lords to oversee the House of Commons. We don't have to worry about the masses and that's why we have two systems. So the House of Lords, who was never elected, they were appointed because of their position, or our United States Senate was never elected or appointed until we passed the constitutional amendment. Guess what? We don't need a House of Lords anymore. We need a General Assembly.
How many members do you think should be in this?
Yeah, we've done a lot of work on that, and we figure about 125 members go from 203 in the House and 50 in the Senate. That's a 253 down to 125. You eliminate a whole set of staff, you eliminate a whole set of committees, because you still want to have a district that's big enough that people can get out and be able to be reachable by the public. And we think with that size district, you would be about 350,000 people, and that's a size that, although Congress is about 500,000, it's still very manageable, and I think you can access the public.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, this will be our final question. Patty, you want to take question number 13?
Last question. Do you have concerns that drilling for Marcellus Shale is being done in the safest manner possible? And do you think the DEP is doing their job?
Mr. David?
Yeah, I have not, I know, and I talk to these companies all the time, and I talk to DEP all the time. We've had some problems with some of the companies that have spills. We've had some companies that have dumped water in the Monongahela River and some of the streams, which has killed fish. Those DEP is overlooking that. The impact fee fundamentally, the share fee and impact fee will, in essence, fund them at a level that we can have enough people monitoring. Right now, I think that we're doing an adequate job, not a great job in terms of overseeing that. I think companies are being policed by a lot of organizations. like the Sierra Club, and some other groups that are paying attention to what's going on. This is different than our great-grandfathers watching the robber barons come in the coal industry when they come in and burn all these coke ovens around 35,000 in Fayette County and strip the land and leave it raped. It's a different time, it's a different place, we're a different generation. People are concerned about water loss, losing water, polluted water, things that we can feed our children and our grandchildren in the future, safe and clean environment. So right now, I think we're doing okay. Are we doing a great job? I don't think you can stop mistakes that happen, but you can make sure you have inspectors that make sure that everything's done in a safe and reasonable fashion.
Okay, thank you.
I would actually agree with that. I mean, I am in the heart of drilling company where I live, and I've seen the trucks come in. They do a great job accessing in. They put up all the barriers, that part of it. So from very personal experience, I would say yes. As far as the DEP goes, I mean, again, oversight is a good thing. It is never in a company's interest to have a spill, ever. I mean, it's just not financially feasible, so they're watching it. My dad was actually the safety director at the chemical plant in Monongahela Health for years in charge of safety, so we grew up with safety and being safe. And I can tell you from observation firsthand that it appears that they're doing a really good job. Agreed, there are going to be incidents here and there where there's bad actors and they're going to get caught and hopefully prosecuted. But I think as a whole, for our particular reason, they're doing it responsibly. Fracking's been around for quite a long time.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that's going to conclude our questions. Now each of the candidates will have 3 minutes to talk about whatever you want to talk about. The floor is yours, and we'll start with Mr. Cook.
As I go through this campaign, I am struck by the number of people, again, that I'm meeting out there that are really upset with government in general. The general consensus that it has changed from a political position of service before self to self before service. And I think that's a problem across the board. One of my leadership abilities and skills and history has always been about we, our, us, as opposed to me, my, and I. And the community projects and activities that I've been into previously, in office, out of office, working with community projects, when you reach out to the community and you get the community involved, and believe me, there's a lot of people out there really working hard to improve their community, but the one constant seems to be there is a lack of leadership. Again, I reference my nieces and nephews about their observations about politicians. When I grew up, I had President Kennedy, President Eisenhower. There were a lot of good leaders, and I really believe that we need to start sending better people, people that put service before self.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you to the editorial board for giving me this opportunity. Thanks to the viewers and the readers and the people that watch online on this on our great media exposure that we can generate. Let me just tell the taxpayers this. I have 2 daughters. I have 4 grandkids. I have 2.5 grandkids, soon to be here in January. And I asked my daughters about, what do you think about what my opponent's party has done to education? And they have kids that are just about ready to go into education. I used to teach school, and they know my commitment to education, being a former member of the House Education Committee for 16 years, and me being on the board of California University, Winder Law School, and University of Pennsylvania Ag Board, participating in education all over Pennsylvania at different levels. And they said, this administration that my opponent wishes to get elected and become a part of, in lockstep with the Corbett administration, has almost destroyed public education. And if you look around, you see what's happening to the Brownsville School District, the California School District, Uniontown, Connellsville, all in Greene County, and those poor school districts, everything has been pushed back on the taxpayer. They talk about not raising taxes. What a fraud when we have a gas tax that's 27 cents that's placed upon the consumers. It's not in place yet. It's coming into place over the next 2 years. It's incremental. This administration, the Tea Party people, which it seems my client sounds like he's a member of the Tea Party, even though he doesn't want to talk about that, have placed on us in Western Pennsylvania 27 cents. I remember it was 4 cents, but they're not even using the money. Most of that money is going to Philadelphia for education, which we've opposed, and some of that money is going to Pittsburgh and the large areas. We want our fair share. We've been fighting for that. You know, this is a different kind of campaign. I have an opponent that does not hold himself as a professional politician. You know what? I'm not ashamed to say I'm a politician. I was mayor for 8 years in California. I've been in the legislature 32 years. I'm one of the highest seniority members. Not like if he gets elected, he goes down to number 203. I'm up to number 3 at the top. We're the ones that get the things done. We're the ones that get the legislation. We're the ones that have the knowledge. This is not a Tea Party. This is not Buchanan City Council. This is a major state that ranks 17th in the world. Let me repeat that. 17th in the world in the size of our budget. This is big time. This is not a day at the park. This is not going to Kennywood. This is not going to a council meeting once a month dealing with minor issues. This is major stuff that affect everybody's lives. And I've done that, and I've voted for bills that affect everybody's lives for 32 years. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your support in the past. I'm looking forward to my next term in office. Thank you very much.
Okay, once again, we want to thank Mr. Cook and Mr. Daley for coming in and agreeing to meet with our Herald-Standard editorial board to share their views with Herald-Standard readers and viewers on our website. And I want to thank you for watching. My name is Mark O'Keefe. I'm the editorial page editor for the Herald-Standard, and we'll see you later. Good. Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it.